Sure.
Thanks. In terms of the agenda, I was wondering if the town manager and the board thought it would be reasonable to push out item number 4 specifically regarding the discussion of the cost-sharing agreement that was Trustee Skometz's interest, and unfortunately her plane is delayed. So if that's okay, maybe we could put that towards the end of the meeting, if that sounds okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So that's the only change I had. Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with that change. Trustee Williams, second by Trustee Pennington. All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. That brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items. I think I see none. We're
out of order?
That's what I just said.
We're
okay. Moving this to towards the end of the meeting. Yeah.
I thought you were moving 4.
No, I was just going to move the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Just so. So don't see any public comments, so that brings us to item number 6, presentations. And tonight we have the Chamber of Commerce and a proclamation for the Youth Corps. Welcome. And I must say, while you're walking up there, Chili Fest was awesome. Super fun. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce, and ironically enough, perfect segue. I want to take this time on the Chamber business to highlight Chili Fest and the success that we had just about 48 hours ago. Parks and Rec Department went above and beyond to put together an event that, to echo what many people told me as I took time around the event, was well planned, well executed, and as smooth as can be. So a few partnerships we had this year. A new one was we did have a stage sponsor. Guardian Storage became our stage sponsor this year, which we were very excited about. Flatirons Family Dental and Orthodontics were the Kids Zone sponsor and allowed us to have the fun inflatables out on the baseball field. Our entertainment was provided by Global Sound Studio in Broomfield that are a large part of our community, as well as trying to team with Parks and Rec on some other opportunities for young children to learn about music. Our root beer was supplied by Superior Liquor, so thank you to them. We had over 45 booths from the business owners, and we had 7 restaurants featured in Restaurant Row, to name them, La Lama, which is out of Denver, Del Vecchio's, right in the parking lot, Wayne's Smoke Shack, our new restaurant over here in the marketplace, Azitra Flats, which is located inside of Renaissance, Sunrise Senior Living, and one of the favorites, Rocky Mountain Fire Department, provided a delicious chili. And if you were not there to hear, our newest restaurant, Wayne's, won the People's Choice. So I just wanted to give props to all the businesses of being part of this in the community, for coming out to judge and to volunteer and to provide zero waste volunteers. It was a phenomenal day.
Great, thanks. So that brings us to then the Youth Corps proclamation. I wonder if we're so far ahead of schedule. I wonder if we should wait anymore.
Yeah, I was just talking to Martin to see what time we had asked the kids to be here, and he said 7:15. So
okay.
Maybe we could.
Would it be okay with the board then if we go to the consent agenda and keep working down that way? Okay, so on the consent agenda this evening is approval of the minutes of the July 29th, 2013 meetings, August 5th, 2013 meeting, and the August 12th, 2013 board meeting, acceptance of the meeting notes of the Parks, Recreation, Trails, and Open Space Advisory Committee, and approval of liquor license renewal for Target Store. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Trustee Williams, second. Trustee Zarelli, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. I'm just going to keep plowing ahead. So that brings us to 8, which is a public hearing and approval of a liquor license application for a Sushi Yama Japanese restaurant. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Phyllis, do you have proof of publication? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is actually just a transfer of a liquor license. It's not a new license. We had mistakenly published it for a public hearing thinking it was a new license. So typically when it's just a transfer of a liquor license, we put it on the consent agenda. But since we had already published for a public hearing, we needed to open the public hearing and take any comments, and then we can close it and the board can ask questions or take action on it. This is a transfer of the liquor license from the old business Rock Creek Sports Grill, thank you, to the new tenant for that space, Sushiyama. I think everything has come back from the Bureau of Investigation.
Yes, the fingerprints came back and there were no problems with the fingerprints, so they're all ready to go.
So staff's recommending approval of the transfer of the liquor license.
Okay, questions or comments from the board? Trustee Williams?
I was just curious, you piqued my interest when you said this is not a new license.
Right.
What constitutes a new license if it's a new business?
So I'll let maybe either Phyllis or Kendra respond to that, but typically, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but typically it's if it's an establishment that isn't taking over a space that already had a previous liquor license and is able to transfer the old one. So if you have a new business moving into a new space, let's say, they would have to go out and do the petition process, and then we would schedule a public hearing and go through that whole process.
So could I say that it's all about your neighbors accepting that you are having a liquor license, but not necessarily about you as a business and how you operate if you're able to operate a liquor license?
Right, because a new liquor license, it's all about the needs of the neighborhood being met. So the idea with the transfer is that the needs of the neighborhood has already been established by the fact that there was a liquor license there already. And then you can transfer it to a new business, but it's the needs of the neighborhood that come into play.
I was always thinking it had something to do with the business,
Well, we
but
got
it's
the
more the
background-
neighborhood.
We got the background stuff too.
Exactly. That's exactly true. That's the other concept, is that the business, the business owner also has to be eligible to receive the liquor license. So, but that comes with the transfer application.
Thanks for clarifying.
All I can say is, having been actually to both of these, frequenting both of them last week, the new restaurants in town, Wayne's and then Sushiyama, I'm excited for both of them. I was very impressed with how Sushiyama was run the night. I was there. It seems to be managed well. I certainly felt well attended to, and I hope it has a bright future. So,
Hear, hear.
good vibes.
Great. Public comment about this particular issue? Seeing none. Any other board comments? That close the public hearing. Entertain a motion. There's not a, I'm sorry, Trustee Williams.
It doesn't matter, whoever you want to name.
Right?
Oh,
Oh, yes, that's right.
go ahead, you're
Well, I'm
already there.
not caught up in the agenda thing, but so if there's no formal ordinance or anything, I just move that we approve the transfer of the liquor license to Sushiyama.
Motion by Trustee Cirilli, second by Trustee Williams. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Let's see, where are we at with, do we have everybody here, or should we continue moving forward?
Looks like we're ready.
So that was the have-not affirmative, that everybody's here is going to be here? Okay. That brings us back to item number 6, presentations for the Youth Corps Proclamation. Mr. Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to take some time in tonight's meeting to honor all the kids and leaders of the Boulder County Youth Corps that...
Young adults, I'm sure that's what you
Young
mean.
adults, yes. Leaders, yes. Young adults, sorry. That take their time in their summer to do some great work in town on some of our parks and trails and other things that we have them do. We have proclamations for each of the young adults tonight. But just to give you a background on the program, the town's been partnering with Boulder County and the Boulder County Youth Corps since 2004. It provides 10 area teenagers and 2 leadership staff members the opportunity to work on projects in town parks and open space areas during the summer. The team worked nearly 3,000 hours on a variety of projects throughout the community during the 8-week program. Some of their accomplishments, and I'll just go through the list here. And they installed 400 feet of soft trail and top dressed an additional 200 feet of soft trail at Founders Park. using almost 50 tons of crusher fines. They renovated the disc golf course pads at Autry Park and installed 12 tons of crusher fines and topsoil. They renovated 800 feet of soft trail in Coyote Ridge area and removed weeds and top dressing of 90 tons of crusher fines. They applied Wind City oil to over 950 feet of cedar fencing in Williamsfield and Community Park, and the dog park and bike park facilities at Autry Park. They extended the existing soft trail from the bridge to the disc golf course in Autry Park, and top dressed 600 feet of adjoining soft trail at Autry Park. They applied 6 tons of topsoil to the bike park pump track. They improved the drainage at Kuffner Field by applying 12 tons of red clay infield mix, and they hand-pulled noxious weeds at Colton Trailhead. So in 8 weeks, they accomplished a tremendous amount
That is a lot of work.
of work for the town. So we want to take the time tonight and recognize these young
Okay.
adults. I think Judy Wolf, is she not here? So Martin, do you want to maybe come up and you can read the proclamation made by the mayor, and then we can have each of the kids
Great.
come up and
And
take a picture, yeah.
all right, beautiful. So with that, I'd like to read a proclamation of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior in appreciation of the Boulder County Youth Corps, whereas Boulder County Youth Corps is commended for their dedicated efforts to help make our community a better place to live, and the Town of Superior has supported the Boulder County Youth Corps since 2004 by coordinating necessary parks and open space projects, and during their 8-week tour, sounds like the Marines, the team worked nearly 3,000 hours on a variety of projects throughout the community, learned much about their local environment. Team accomplishments include the 400 feet of soft trail work that was done, 200 feet of soft trail at Founders Park, almost 50 tons of crusher fines, installation of 12 tons of crusher fines and 10 tons of topsoil, renovation 800 feet of soft trail in the Coyote Ridge by removing weeds and top dressing over 90 tons of crusher fines, applied linseed oil to over 950 feet of cedar fencing at Williamsfield, at Community Park, and the dog park and bike park facilities at Autry Park. Extended existing soft trail extended a soft trail, 600 feet of from the bridge to the disc golf course, and top dress 600 feet of adjoining soft trail at Autry Park using approximately 50 tons of crusher fines. Applied approximately 6 tons of topsoil to the bike park pump track at Autry Park, and improved drainage on Kuffner Field by applying 12 tons of red clay infield mix to skinned baseline areas and hand-pulled noxious weeds on the Colton Trailhead. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Muckle, Mayor of the Town of Superior, and the Board of Trustees do hereby proclaim its appreciation to Boulder County Youth Corps for their significant contribution to the community. And Martin, do you want to introduce the people that are here? Sure. Or I can start. So, and if I'm butchering anybody's name, I will. That was my thinking, is that I'd give that to you.
Well, we can both do it, Ron.
We can do it together.
So if you have copies of the proclamation, I'm glad to.
Oh, no, I can do it. So why don't we do it this way? So is it Kasiva? Keshava. I started out with this one. I was like, oh man, I'm not going to do well here. Alvarado Yule, Caitlin Clement, Imran Dawood. Imran. Thank you. Nathaniel Ingi. Inge? Yeah. I need like prep for this.
Doesn't get better.
Zachariah Lauer? Did I get close? Anybody? Max Lyles, Madison Martin, Erica Payne, Madeline Peters, Nicholas Robinson, Sienna Mann, Babalu Jones, Judy Wolf, and that's it. So would everybody involved in the Youth Corps come forward? We would love to honor you, take a picture, maybe the whole board. We
Average. They're all above average.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a backyard.
Thank you so much.
I want to say these guys have really been great. This is really one of the best teams.
All right.
Thanks for your service.
All right. Should we big crowd together? Only outside.
Are you guys in a cool place after they had some? I saw you out there sweating.
You might have to interact. You're going to have to squish in.
Squish in. You guys here must know each other, don't you?
All right. Can you do me a favor and look over here on the count of three? I'd appreciate it. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good. All right. Hang on. Anybody out here needs pictures? We all good? All right. Yes, that's it. Very good. And sorry about the name.
It wasn't your fault.
Okay, yes. I know I had to blame somebody. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Imagine they don't want to stay.
I know. It's so fascinating. It's mind-numbing.
Max is staying. Good.
Good for you. All right, let's see. So, might as well move to 9. That's okay with everybody? Yeah. So, item number 9, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Superior Salvage and Maintenance LLC for snow removal and ice control services. Mr. Megley.
Thank you, Mayor. The town contracts annually with Superior Maintenance for snow removal and ice control services. We've used a variety of contractors since assuming the responsibility of these services in 2004 from the districts 2 and 3 at that time. In 2008, the town revised its snow and ice control practices to expand services and to reduce sand usage. The highest priority streets designated as priority 1 and 2 on the attached in your packet snow removal route plan were assigned as the responsibility of our snow removal contractor, while town staff expanded service delivery and assumed responsibility for the services on the priority 3 streets that's shown on your map. We track various snow removal statistics to measure the performance of our town and contracting staff. These measures include snowfall hours, miles of plowing operations, and snow removal costs. Recent history is summarized in the chart, and you will see that they remain pretty consistent as far as the number of hours plowed, the miles driven, the miles served, and the biggest fluctuation would be the estimated snowfall, because we never know how much snow we're going to get in a given year. But for the most part, we've been able to keep the costs pretty consistent since 2008. We last bid out this contract in 2012 for the 2012-13 season. We received a number of bids, and ultimately the town board awarded the contract to Superior Maintenance. The cost estimate from Superior Maintenance for that snow season was $200,000, approximately a little bit more, with the final cost for the season coming in at $192,938, which was below the estimate, which is always good. We are recommending renewal of the contract based on a 2.8% increase, which is based on the Boulder Consumer Price Index, which would increase the base contract from $148,640 to $152,802. In addition to that, we have ancillary equipment operated costs that are included in the contract, an hourly rate for loader operations, and then a standby fee that typically we've charged in the past, but with this contract is not included. So the total estimated cost for this renewal is $206,146. We've been pleased with the contractor's performance over the last year. We've received few complaints and would recommend renewal of the contract.
Okay, thanks. Questions for the board? Trustee Williams?
So I was wondering, you said it's within the amount that is budgeted, but you didn't put the budget amount. I'm being lazy and I don't feel like sifting through that. So what is that amount? You too, huh?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But Dave Heinrich, who's our civil engineer, he's coming over, so he might have that. If I can get back to you on that.
Okay, yeah, that, I wanted to know what that is. I suppose I could look it up. And then the other thing I wanted to note, so thank you for the comparison, year-to-year comparison, especially with the materials cost.
Right.
As well as in comparison to the snowfall in inches per year. So I'm looking at this, and I'm comparing what I'm hoping is apples to apples here. In 2012, 2013, that was last year, and 2009 and 2010 year, the snowfall estimated was 100 inches. And the materials cost is $33,000 for 2009 to 10, and for last year is $77,000.
Right.
I'm wanting to know what why there's a $40-some thousand difference, and how we can reduce that in the coming year.
So there's a couple of factors involved here. One is the two different contractors at that time. We made a switch. The other thing is we have an agreement with CDOT to use their facility to store the materials that our contractor is going to use. CDOT had requested that we build some additional space, like retaining walls for the materials in the CDOT yard, specifically for our material. So there was some additional costs up and above what just the material cost was for that year.
To build that little retaining wall or whatever you
so
want
we
to
did some additional prep work for the site area, and then the cost of the material fluctuates as well in any given year, depending on availability and just market prices.
So how much more are we talking as far as the extra that we needed to go for CDOT in order to have our own little cubby hole or cubby hole or corner?
I don't have the exact number on what it was. I had talked to Alex before the meeting, and he had said it was in the $30,000 range for the work we did.
Okay.
But,
I mean, that would make sense to me, but I would like to know that.
Sure. Yeah. I can get that. I can follow up with you and get you that information. Yeah.
And I understand, costs rise from 2009 till now. That makes sense. But that's why I'm asking about the 40 grand. I mean, it's some 44, whatever.
The other thing we had happen with this contractor uses a little bit more material than the previous contractor, so that also increased our price. So we're working with them to try to get them to not use as much as material. Each contractor has a different comfort level with the amount of material they put down and the effect it has on the road. So we're working with them to try to keep that. I mean, we want to make sure the streets are safe, but yet we want to make sure that we're not using excessive material.
Right, there's a happy medium in there. So I'm assuming that next year that $77,000, it would come nowhere close to that.
That's what we're, yes, yeah, because we won't have the additional cost for the.
Okay. Because as I look at this, it ranges between 25 grand and 50 grand.
Right.
Depending on snowfall. So the highest, well, actually, I can't even say that. At 35 inches, that was the highest for material
That's when you're
cost.
going to have a fluctuation in the price of the materials.
Okay.
And the type of materials you're using too, because the ice slicer that they let, we've been moving towards is more expensive than just the regular sand and salt.
Correct.
That you can use it, so.
Okay.
And
And is that the
it's-
upward trend that we're seeing here in the costs for the material costs?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the ice slicer's more expensive, sand and salt's less expensive, and then you have the mag chloride in between there. And we don't use that as much anymore because of the effect it has on our medians and the landscaping.
Right, and
So-
potholes.
Right.
So the ice slicer, what's in that? I mean, is that a different component? Is that what makes that safer for our streets and more effective for?
I can't answer
You don't know?
that.
Okay.
I can follow up with you on that, but technically, I'm not sure what characteristics it has.
Is there anyone in the room that might know that answer?
Well, Dave, our civil engineer, I don't know where he's at, so, but he would have the answer for you, so.
Okay. And is ice slicer about double the cost of sand and salt, I'm assuming? No? Even more?
Yeah.
Even more? Okay.
Oh, there's,
Good to know. All right. All right, so I would just love to know what that cost is that we did for CDOT. Is that that cost that we need to do for CDOT, that's temporary, right?
no.
It's not. It's a
No.
permanent structure that they're not going to tear down, that we just didn't waste 30 grand for.
Correct.
Okay.
Ice slicer is a 90% sodium chloride and 60 additional trace minerals. Yeah.
Sodium chloride instead of magnesium chloride.
Okay.
So where's
Maybe
the...
more salt.
You heard it here.
And CDOT likes to use it, I mean, everybody likes to use it, so at times we go through it fairly quickly, so.
Okay. Trustee Sorelli.
Well, the same chart, which you're going to regret giving us. I don't know if there's a misprint or what, but 17,000 route miles driven in 2012-13, if I'm reading that right, compared to the highest prior to that was 9,000 for the same, and the hours plowed was only 690 to do this, so they were driving fast. That's when they were hitting those. I don't understand this, how could they have driven so many miles?
Yeah, and George, can you answer that one? George Kruppner's
Somebody
here
from the-
from the contract.
And I'm not sure it mattered to the price, except that there is a operation.
No, because it's a base price.
Yeah.
George Kuffner, 75 Point. What I can answer you with miles is that we put out twice as many miles, twice as many hours for the store. And we had average of 3 trucks per snowstorm. So there wasn't 2 trucks, there wasn't 1 truck, there was 3 trucks.
Okay, so you triple the effort.
That's right, of course. I plow on Council Boulevard, I plow Colton Road, and I take care of Indiana with another truck. Long hours, it gets to you. And we do not speed, we don't rush. We're out there for the safety of the public.
Okay, that was only a joke.
So, George, a question on that. So if you have 3 trucks out for 1 hour, you're not talking about 3 man-hours, you just count it as 1 hour?
3 man hours, of course,
Yeah.
per truck, man hour per truck.
Because I agree, there's some disconnect here between the hours plowed and the route miles driven, none of which I care about. I care if my roads are workable, and I care that you've stayed within great budget parameters here. So good work and good cost, and that makes me happy. So
Means a lot.
I think you
As a
did a
citizen and
nice
as a
job.
taxpayer too. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Excuse me, Lisa Kaffner, 7520 West Coal Creek. I just want to address, we pay attention to the weather, obviously. If you're going to have 45-degree day the next day and the sun's out, obviously that's going to dictate what you do the night before during that storm. Okay, if you're going to have cloud cover and 20-degree days, that's also going to dictate what material you use. We've heard all the wonders of MagChlor supposedly until someone goes in and they're underneath of their vehicles somewhat rusted. So we are particular about what we use, what we combine, and where we're putting it. We're doing our best to stay very conscientious of the material that goes out on the roads. So we want to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to serve the town again. We feel very fortunate. And it's our top priority to do a good job. Not only to please you, the board, but, staff, but also all the citizens. So we're, we don't like messy work. We get out there, we clean it up. We don't want someone to have to go over a hump of snow to turn a corner. We try to address that. So yes, some of the man hours might be kind of high up there, but when we see what the storm is, and of course, the weather, what's going on up at 128 at the top of McCaslin isn't the same as what's happening down here in front of Town Hall. And the roads, of course, are different. If you notice, it tends to stick real quick. A lot of times we really can't wait till there's an inch or two out there because you're going to have total chaos. You have to stop and think of what the industry was in this area prior to the town of Superior being built. And we all know that as being mining community and mine shafts. You have varying temperatures with the ground, the roads that have been put in through this town. So one area is going to be totally different than somewhere else. And yes, it's not been snowing in one place and there's a heck of a blizzard somewhere else, a mile away. So, we're trying to address everything. And we pay attention to weather. If we think, hey, we need to be out there, we place a call. Or if town staff says it's your call, we go out. It's that important to us. And there's been very few times McCaslin's been closed during major blizzards. We try to hope that that's not ever going to happen. We want to be out there and have that road cleared so McCaslin does not get closed, so that people are inconvenienced. We know after work, everyone wants to go home. That's their first priority, or get to wherever they need to be. And that's including the schools and all the athletic events. So that's things we like to address. So,
Great.
Yes.
Thank you, appreciate your comments.
Trustee Williams.
I want to give you a very huge kudos to your company for what I call the wall on McCaslin and 128. I am at that first entrance, and we use that up and down because we have a volleyball that we go to south on Indiana. And I have to say, last year was excellent because my daughter is now driving, and she's obviously terrified going down the hill.
I was too at one time.
Yeah, and in the past we've had some situations where even for a couple of years there, it wasn't optimal. And so I feel pretty confident now when I go down that hill, it's not near as icy or even anywhere close. So I really thank you for that. And I appreciate that you live near here and really care about your town.
Well, thank you. We like being able to have the good response time.
Trustee Pennington.
I just wanted to be clear, your hours plowed are very moderate. What Joe was saying is the route miles driven is way high, and he was trying to figure out how fast you were going to get that many miles covered in a moderate number of hours. So I don't want you to be paranoid that when you issue 3 trucks out there to take care of business that you're somehow high. And this is in the public record, but I'm sure Matt will give you a copy of it so you can see your number of hours plowed.
You read it in the box.
Frankly, it will look like a miracle. Right, yeah. Frankly, the number of hours plowed in the other 100-inch year, which Deb referred to as 3 years ago, the hours plowed was 1,065 in that 100-inch year. In this 100-inch year, you only use 690 hours. So you're looking good, so don't get paranoid about that. But another thing, a compliment, is Indiana apparently is a Tier 2 street, and I believe you treated it functionally as a Tier 1 street. It was open all winter that I tried to navigate it during the storms, which is an improvement over previous years.
Yeah, well, we try, I'm trying not to interrupt you though, but we also pay attention when children are in school. If there's a storm coming on a weekend and children are not in school, it's not going to place the high priority as the next day when children are in school.
Right.
As for, the vacations, times off, spring breaks, holiday breaks, things of that nature. So that's kind of my little job of paying attention to things like that. And yes, there are times when, hey, it looks like a sandbox out there, but, we stay on top and talk to the sheriffs and, we'll be keeping a handle on that this year. But we have noticed that residents are somewhat spoiled. They like the roads down the pavement, they like them dry, and they want to go the speed limit or above. They're not interested in going
Yeah. Says it as notional evidence that our snow removal far exceeds any neighboring community.
Yes.
Anytime I drive around, I feel that way.
Well, thank you.
100%, I totally agree.
Well, it's not like we're not out looking at other communities. We are. So thank you for the opportunity to serve you.
Thanks for coming tonight, too.
So, and I just related to this, I think this is another excellent board policy where we outsource services like this compared to many communities which would have these fixed costs running year after year, no matter what. So I think that we get great value and great service. So congratulations to you on that. So,
Yeah.
anything else from town staff? My only request is that a metric for next year, if just the volume or the tonnage of material supplied would be great.
Can do that.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Sirley?
I move that we approve, I lost it now, Town of Superior Ordinance Number, Resolution
R45.
R45, approving, where is it? The extension of.
You want me to read?
I lost the page.
That's what I had earlier. I move to approve resolution number R-45, Series 2013, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement for professional services with Superior Salvage and Maintenance, LLC, for snow removal and ice control services.
Motion by Trustee Williams, second by Trustee Sirelli. Any further discussion? Phyllis?
Cirelli?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That motion carries, and thank you once again for your service.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to, I wonder if somebody from town staff,
Have a great night.
some town staff around besides you, could just see if Lisa is going to be.
Oh, we just got an email.
Oh, you did?
Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she says DIA closed and my flight just landed in Colorado Springs.
Oh,
Help us to make it.
Okay, so probably not coming. I wish I could drive very quickly.
Well, we're not waiting.
An hour and a half. Can we, stall all this for an hour and a half? Probably not.
No, probably not. So let's go back to, people want to go back to 4 or just finish up where we are? Go back.
Yeah, we suggest we just finish up and then.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. That brings number 10, preliminary reading of an ordinance amending section 1-3-20 of the Superior Municipal Code to increase maximum fine for code violations in accordance with state law. Mr. Mackley?
Thank you, Mayor. The state legislative body passed Colorado State House Bill 13-1060, which was signed by Governor Hickenlooper on April 18th, 2013. This new law raises the maximum fine that Colorado municipal courts may impose at the municipality's option. Currently, it's set at $1,000 was the maximum fine. The new law allows municipalities to impose up to a $2,650 fine. Again, that's at the town's option. It also has a provision in there that allows the maximum fine to be increased, have an inflationary automatic increase at the beginning of each year based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index for the Denver-Boulder region. Staff's not recommending that we implement that portion of it, simply because we would have to change the tickets every year and change the signs, and that could add additional costs to our court operations. So our current maximum fine that the town has set for ourselves is $499. Staff's recommending that we increase the maximum fine to be allowed increase it from $499 to $2,650, which is the new state limit. The judge will have flexibility in the ultimate fine that's imposed, anywhere from $1 to $2,650, depending on the circumstances of the case. The municipal court judge is recommending this as well, and if the board doesn't have any changes, we would schedule it for a second and final reading.
Okay, thanks. Questions from the board?
No one have any? What would warrant $2,650 of a fine?
That's really up to the judge. It depends. There are some cases where you have repeat offenders, for example, where you may have a second or third violation that warrants a larger fine. There are some cases where the judge would suspend that amount of fine. That's typically where it's used more, where you're not really sure if the defendant's going to comply with whatever the plea bargain was. I'll give you an example just of more than 5 unrelated people, more than 3 unrelated people living in a house. That's a difficult one to enforce. Oftentimes there's a deferred judgment given, they plead guilty, and the judge says, if you comply with this and you comply with it for the next year, you won't have a fine. But if you don't comply with it, I'm going to suspend this $2,650 fine over your head. It gives somebody incentive to comply. So I will say that it's often used more as an incentive than actually imposed.
Or a deterrent?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay. All right.
Deterrent and incentive, yes, exactly. An incentive to comply or deterrent to violate.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Comments, questions from the public? Seeing none. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the preliminary. Mrs. Shirley?
I move to approve the preliminary reading and schedule a final reading of the ordinance increasing the maximum fine that the municipal court may impose.
Motion by trustee Cirilli, second trustee Williams. Further discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. That brings us to 11, which is adoption of a resolution appointing a member to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee. Mr. Mankley.
Thank you, Mayor. Currently we have one vacancy on the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee. The board has interviewed 2 applicants interested in serving on that committee. Jeff Isaacson was interviewed on August 19th, 2013, and tonight the board interviewed Jackie Zavlosky for the vacancy. Per our ordinance with regard to advisory committees, if we have more than one candidate for a position, the town clerk would hand out ballots, the board would vote, and Phyllis will collect those, read the names, and then the board would appoint the highest vote getter.
Okay. Take one.
We don't have any music.
Pencil?
We're all spread out tonight, aren't we?
Should have had you come and sit over here.
It's not allowed. It's not allowed. This is my seat.
I'll just read the first name. Jeff. 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 And Jeff.
Okay. So you will let him know, and we will appoint Mr. Isaacson in
Yeah.
this position.
Yeah.
But as Trustee Williams, I don't know if you want to say something.
I was just
So I'll let you.
Okay, I wanted to state that I think Jackie is amazing and what she has done already for the town, and I know we have other positions open, and I hope she considers those. And I'm quite sure the ProStack will have probably another opening. It seems to, you never know. Something will have an opening. But my reason was not that I chose the better candidate. That's not what I did. What I did is Jeff, and I don't know him, and I do know you. Jeff applied back in June, and he started attending early, I think July, or I think he started attending in June, and he got put off, no offense, by town staff, and because of the town center. And I just wanted to honor that for him, because I kind of felt if I were him, I would be extremely discouraged. If somebody came at the last second and got voted in over him, I think he would be kind of disillusioned. So that was my reason. That was my only reason. It was hard to choose. So please stay involved. You're doing a great job on all kinds of different issues, so I love having you around.
Did I see
Yeah,
a hand?
yes,
Trustee
ditto to
Pennington?
that, Jackie. It's totally, to me, the first in the queue, and who has shown obvious good faith by attending meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So he says he's a serious candidate. He has proven himself to be a serious candidate. So what I'd invite you to do is, we have 2 vacancies on OSAC, open space, and that certainly would give you experience in the open space realm to then apply again for the ProStack position when the next one becomes available. So I'd like to see you just express interest in open space, and would find an immediate spot for you. However, if you're not interested in open space, certainly don't feel forced to do that. But it's just
And can I say, so,
priority.
more to what I was thinking is that it's very uncommon for ProStack to be doing a lot of voting. I will think that that's not too common, and, well, it's, I would be surprised that there was very contentious votes, and so I would strongly encourage you to attend the ProStack meetings anyway, because you can probably get as much of what you're interested in and desire in by just attending the meetings. So that would be my recommendation.
And then you're also primed for the next available opening.
So,
I echo the same thing everybody said. I was impressed by your obvious talents and your enthusiasm. And if you don't want to look at one of the other openings, please continue your interest in ProStack and don't get discouraged. I was coldly rejected by the board when I first applied for the Planning Commission way back in.
it must be harsh.
It was hard.
Persistent.
Oh, wow. So, please stay interested.
And if there's anybody here from ProStack this evening who would like to speak to this particular issue, this might be an opportune time.
And there's also an opening Historical Commission,
Which is a wonderful group.
another really sexy group, okay?
Good evening, Jim Payne. I chair ProStack, and very pleased we had 2 very fine candidates, and I appreciate both of them coming forward. But to the mayor's point, if I can use this opportunity just to plug on ProStack, we actually do a lot of voting, but we are set.
That actually surprises me, that things are that contentious,
Well, not contentious, but
just to get
It's his
direction.
process.
yeah, we vote, and there's good art, there's a lot of different opinions. But we are set up with, we take our work plan, we break them up into work projects, we have project leaders and teams that can take any of those projects and take ownership. And we are able to take non-members as team members, working with the seated members and they can come to meetings and fully participate, and that does not require an appointment. So it's a great way to get involved. So I'll use this opportunity to plug that for anybody, but for Jackie or anyone else.
And there's a ton of work coming up in ProStack
Right.
here, and so I'm sure that
We
the
need
members
people.
of
We
the
need
ProStack
people.
committee would be more than delighted to have as many people that can attend
Absolutely.
to
We've done that
participate.
before, and we're anxious to get people to participate in that way, so that's
Yeah.
absolutely great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
One of the items, I mean, with the town center project being approved, trying to figure out what the community would like to see in those areas is a big one.
Yep. So that's, anything else from the board?
Well, I'm going to plug OSAC because we have some interesting things happening soon here. We're going to be going on to a couple of well, it's not new properties, it's properties that we just kind of overlooked years ago when we did the open space summary report, and we're going to take pictures, we're going to evaluate it from many different statistical calculations, and we're also going to look at possible events that we can start up and get people involved in, walking the trails on open space. There were a number of different ways to get the community out, and we were going to explore that. So, just plugging that one.
Great. In case there's just a vast viewing audience, so that we would encourage anybody to apply to any of these committees. So, great.
And then
Yes.
there's a resolution
Oh,
that needs
yes.
to be approved.
Trustee Williams, do you have it, or?
No, I'm blank here.
Take a minute.
Or I can do it, or?
Go ahead.
This is harder than flipping pages.
So, let's see. If people don't
Okay,
mind,
no, I'm-
46, or do you want to read it?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I make a motion for the Town of Superior Resolution Number R-46, Series 2013, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior of Colorado. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing. Appointment of a member to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee. And we're putting the name in of Jeffrey Isaacson.
Motion by Trustee Williams, second by Trustee Cirilli for the discussion. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. I don't know if the thunder is that either we did well or we didn't do well. I'm not sure.
I just glad it didn't happen the night at the town center.
Thanks. So
Precious.
that brings us back to reports, questions, and issues. I actually have to step out for a half moment to answer something. So,
Okay. All right, I'll
Trustee Barrington, would you like to start? We'll start at the other end.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to compliment everyone on the successful Chili Fest, attended part of it, and it's always a great deal of fun. I would add on September 16th, when you have the special work session on the financing of the town center, how do you record that? The two of us trustees who are not going to be there, will there be audio?
We broadcast the work sessions, so that'll be taped.
Okay, great.
Recorded.
Great, okay.
I think we use tape anymore.
I've already said I tried Wayne's Barbecue in Sushiyama, and I really recommend those to our residents. I recommend you always think of eating in Superior before you head out of Superior. And both of them were terrific, and I really appreciate the e-blast we put out to announce both new businesses opening.
we
I actually,
got a standard.
That's great, yeah.
I like the positive results on the, there was a lot of chatter as people tried them, so that was nice. And then I want to compliment Alan and his group on how those trails in the El Dorado natural space look. They really are nice. They really brighten up that spot.
And I was speaking to the mayor before the meeting, and he had mentioned the same thing about the stone along the trails. And as you remember, during the discussion, that was something we thought about whether or
Paring
not to
back.
keep in the project, but,
Yeah.
and Alan came up and said, no.
Yeah,
I
let's
think we
keep
need to
it.
that.
Yes.
And
It was, I told him after the meeting, I really appreciated the fact he came up and put himself on the line with that, because, you know, that was the night we were finding extra budget money for the toilet. And it would have been very easy to say now half the price of the stone and just make it functional. And it really is quite nice, quite pretty, for a much-needed, pretty barren area. So good work on that in concept and in execution.
Trustee Williams?
Okay, so I did not have a Dr. Cog meeting, which is Denver Regional Council of Governments, in August, and I may not have one this September. MVIC was canceled, so, yeah. Clearly, there's nothing going on with CDOT and the ramp funding, or we would be meeting, and I would have already heard about that. So still up on that, still looking at where we're going to be with that. But I did attend a Dr. Cog-sponsored seminar, and it was called Shifting Suburbs, Part 1. I guess there's 3 parts. I don't know if I'm going to go to all 3. But it is called A New Framework for Compact Development. And the reason why I'm probably not going to go to all 3 is they really focus on compact development, these TODs, which is transit-oriented developments, along rail, light rail. And that really doesn't affect us. And so when I went to this, all of the examples were light rail examples, whether they were around the country or the ones that they were highlighting here in Denver. So it was a little angering for me, because I just sat there going, well, you know, how can we, you know, translate this to BRT? And how can we also translate this to what I would call true suburbia? When they were talking about a couple of communities in Denver where it was clearly urban to more urban. So I did have a few takeaways that I kind of wanted to just read off that I thought were kind of interesting. Bear with me for a couple minutes. You might find it interesting as well. So you probably already know this, that strip malls are passé, and they were overbuilt. And consumers kind of favor places with character. And I thought this was an interesting fact that the U.S. has more than double the amount of retail space of all of Europe. Which I wouldn't have thought about. I mean, I've been to Europe, and it's pretty compact and dense. So I was a little shocked to hear that. And then, this is no surprise, but e-commerce has, you know, sent the downsizing of many chain stores like Blockbuster and small video stores of the past. And, you know, Netflix has come in instead. And then the other thing was dying and dead malls. And there's a website you can go to called deadmalls.com, which I thought was kind of cool. And they're a thing of the past, but what they're doing is they're shifting to what is called town centers. So we're not the first, obviously not going to be the last. And basically
We'll just be the best.
We'll just be the best, yeah, hopefully. So they're taking these malls and where there's just an enormous amount of surface parking and transferring or redeveloping these into TOD centers that are town centers with very little surface parking and structured parking. And I thought this was interesting. They anchor them for like the new mixed-use placemaking outdoor town centers that they call empty squares. that are anchored by not big box, but restaurants. And it's all about being anchored by restaurants. That's the new phase of where people are going towards. And they said that these empty squares attract parents and kids playing at all hours of the day. And they noticed that it's revolved around play for the kids, rest and relaxation for the parents, and food. And so this is kind of where these are going. And then I thought this was interesting. Well, it's not interesting, it's common sense, but these transit-oriented developments are density, high density, but what high density does is it demands high quality. And so with high quality, they consider the design being it attracts profitability for retail. And so what retail is doing is the retailers are kind of breaking the rules, like grocery stores, Home Depots, Walmarts, dentists. They want to be on the bottom floor above or below residential because they feel that that's where the action is. And this is a whole new ballgame for retailers. And that's something that we didn't really discuss, or at least we didn't say it in those terms. And that was one of the reasons why I was really kind of pushing for the bottom floor being retail or office and residential above. So they talked about that, and I thought that was interesting. And then they did have, I thought this was interesting also, is a lot of these TOD centers have parking on the top of the building. So we might look at that. And let's see if I had anything else. No, that's it. But yeah, we'll see if I'll go to the others. And if you guys want to go instead or want to come with me, please let me know.
Great, thanks. I think the only thing I have to well, a couple of things. So no surprise, it doesn't look like rail is coming our way anytime soon. Once again, they did the calculation. It seems the cost per rider per mile is some exorbitant number. So people continue to look into that, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. There was a discussion about what to call BRT. Speaking of BRT, so names that are being thrown around are like Foothills Flyer, Foothills Flyer, Flatirons Flyer, or something like that. If the board has any particular interest in names.
I like Bird.
I like Bert. Well, Bart is in
Bird. Bay Area Rapid Transit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bart is yeah.
But
Bay
it
Area.
have to be.
We could
It
call
has to
it
be Bird.
Flirt. Flatirons
Wait a
Rapid
minute.
Transit.
Boulder County. Okay, we got to get
We
an
have to
E in
get
there.
Denver.
I
We have
know,
to
we
get
got
Denver
an
in
E.
there.
All right, well, help me there. How do we get to Bert?
Well, if
Rapid
anybody has any
Transit.
particular interest in names or is
Okay.
more creative than myself, which is probably everybody on the planet, just let me know and I'll pass it along to the folks at RTD. And then, so I did get a chance to speak to the manager before the meeting and did bring up question/concern about noise buffering along 36. I don't know if everybody else got an email, but it seems like that would make sense. And so I did ask the manager, I assume the board's okay with this, just to discuss with CDOT and or HTPE.
Where is the biggest part of that
HPT.
problem?
Well,
I think
I think it's anywhere approaching Rock Creek from 36 going east.
the townhomes, which I always blank on the name of those.
Saddlebrook?
Saddlebrook. Okay.
No, but where I live is very bad too.
But
Yours is
then
done,
from-
I think, that's right, but Town Center, I think, hopefully will mitigate some of your
It's hard to
traffic
predict
noise.
because a lot of times you think there's a hill that would mitigate it and the noise is coming from behind the hill anyway. I can't make any sense out of why the noise is and what's the best way to mitigate it. Hopefully the town center will help that, but
So the town manager offered to explore with CDOT whether or not there's any funding for that, and I'm not sure exactly what the process would be to think about that issue. I don't know if the board has any thoughts about that.
A thought I have is we get the same sort of request from those people fairly close to McCaslin. And when we were doing the different McCaslin visioning, there was some suggestion made at that point to consider berms and such on those houses where that geographically might be a possible solution. Some of them, it's not even a possible solution. But it sort of begs question whether or not, if we're interested in doing this community-wide, that we actually have some way to measure the noise and see where we have the most serious problems with it.
Well, you could do anywhere along 36 that's near housing. And it's tire noise, it's not particularly engine noise, it's tire noise. Very rarely is it a loud engine.
So could I just pass along to the town manager to just contemplate what you think might be a process, just to look at this and go from there, if that sounds okay? That's all I had. Really?
Okay, very short. I had a Rocky Flat Stewardship Council meeting this morning, very short. An update of DOE activities, which did not seem much going on there, and their monitoring that was striking, at least to us. The downstream communities always have an interest of what's going on with the water, groundwater and surface water monitoring. We started the first reading of the 2014 budget and work plan. Budget's exactly the same as this year. The work plan would be essentially the same, with a shift in increased emphasis on understanding groundwater monitoring, starting with briefings on the fundamentals of what's going on there. And the third thing that's coming up, the next meeting is October 28th, is on the Stewardship Council. There's 4 community members that are not government entities. The Rocky Flats Museum, which has a new name, the Homesteaders, the Rocky Flats Homesteaders, I forget his last name now, for some reason. As an individual, he's applied and been selected. And the League of Women Voters are have been the 4 citizen members. There's going to be, there's an application that groups can apply to be considered, and there'll be interviews at the October 28th meeting. And Matt, I can forward to you an email that has the criteria that maybe you would want to put out on the town website if there's any town groups that are interested in applying to be an individual, a non-governmental member of the Stewardship Council. Then the second thing I thought I'd mention, and I can't remember the exact date, but coming up, I think in September in Chautauqua, is Kristen Iverson's speaking about on her book again. And I think that's a ticket sale item.
Was the date on that?
It's in September, I believe, at Chautauqua. So you'd have to look at the Chautauqua events on the website. There's a series of book presentations, I think, authors, and she's one of them.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thanks. Town manager?
Oh, before I missed one thing. I just want to say I held a First Friday that I have, the first Friday of every month. I did for September. And my topic, the main topic, was the El Dorado K-8 parcel. And I passed out surveys on what people would like to see on that property and what they would not like to see on that property. And I gave a copy to ProStack, and I gave a copy to you. And you can give a copy to the board as well. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that Other than that,
Pass that information along.
Actually, before we go to the town manager, just in case the town, anything else coming from the town attorney this evening that you need to, I'm just giving you the opportunity for time. So if you want to give anything from the town attorney for the board this evening?
No, I don't think so.
You're throwing for a loop because you're going out of order.
Do you want me to, are you trying to have me talk about the cost sharing thing?
Oh,
No.
did you have it? Okay. I didn't know if you were going to speak about the cost sharing issue.
Again, I'm not really sure what we were trying to do with the cost sharing issue, so I'm happy to talk about it in general, but the agreement that we are going to be talking about on Monday isn't ready yet, so
Yeah.
I'm happy
I was
to talk.
giving you the opportunity of being able to depart early unless you had something else. That's what I was trying to. That's what I was trying to do.
I didn't understand.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm happy to answer questions about cost sharing
Okay.
agreements in general, if that's what we want to try to do. It's up to you all.
Okay.
I'll stay, go ahead.
Okay. Town manager.
Just a couple of things. I put in the digest, the CML Policy Committee is, again, looking for any policy items that we might want them to consider. I've also, just as convenience to the board, scheduled somebody from CML staff to come to the October 14th meeting during the work session to give an update on what they see as issues in the next legislative session. So keep that in mind if you have something in mind you want to ask them about on a legislative issue that you hear might be coming up. They'll be able to answer a lot of those questions. So I think Sam Mamet is not able to make, but Kevin Balmer, who's the deputy director, is going to be here. So, and then the other thing I had was so we're getting in the budget season for the 2014 budget. We have some upcoming finance committee meeting dates. I think Paul sent those out to you, so if you just keep an eye for those meeting reminders.
I can't make the first one, but.
Okay. And then if we get a number of you that can't make it, we'll look at some other dates as well. So that was it.
And did you want to talk about the cost sharing agreement? I know it was coming from trustee Skomas, but.
Can we just have what is a cost-sharing agreement? Give us just a little bit of a primer here on what we're going to be doing.
and have we ever entered into one before?
We have a similar type of agreement with, for the Superior Marketplace. Lays out the different revenue expectations, when certain revenues go to the developer, when certain revenues stay with the town, and what percentage goes to the developer depending on how much revenue is coming in. So,
and what type of things?
And what type of public improvements are eligible to be reimbursed. So the marketplace is the main one.
What's the name of that document? Do we have that?
I don't remember what it's titled, but we can get you a copy.
That'd be great.
Get us.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Me too.
The reason for a cost sharing agreement in this instance is because SURA is not subject to taper. So SURA can enter into a pledge, a binding pledge, not subject to appropriation. Typically, when the town enters into any sort of pledge, it's subject to an appropriation, yearly appropriation. SURA is not subject to taper, so SURA, being an urban renewal authority, can pledge its revenue irrevocably. So what this will be is an irrevocable pledge from SURA to pay the developer. Any amounts, and of course, this is any amounts that come in, and this is subject to the formula and all that, but basically what it is it's a pledge to pay amounts as they come in to this developer. And the reason that the developer wants this is because the developer will be issuing bonds. So that's basically what a cost-sharing agreement is. It's a pledge, really, from SURA to pay revenues as they come in irrevocably. So that's really what this is. The town's a party, the districts are a party, but...
For certain public improvements that would qualify for reimbursement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Streets, bridges, public infrastructure,
Right.
civic spaces, that kind of
Playing
thing.
fields, amphitheaters.
Exactly.
Parking garages, yep, all those.
Okay. Oh, that wasn't.
When do you anticipate we'll see the copy for the proposed?
We're supposed to be having a work session on
On the
Monday
16th.
the 16th. We're meeting tomorrow to go through the agreement. We also have to have our bond counsel review it because it's pledged, we'll need an opinion letter from bond counsel saying that it's valid. Bond council's working through it as well, so we hope to get at least a relatively final version to you for Monday the 16th. Bond council, we're trying to get bond council to work a little faster to get through it,
So, Thursday is our goal.
yes.
So, I guess, I'm curious as to what is not TIFable? Give me an example of something not
That
TIFable.
wouldn't.
Let me give an example of what I think would not be TIFable, and you tell me if I'm correct.
Typical eligible and public improvement.
TIFable.
Okay, I
Sorry.
can't tell you.
It's a new word.
Yeah, I thought you said
I thought you said
typical as well.
okay. Would be subject to TIF, okay,
Subject to TIF.
okay.
Okay, so infrastructure and tap fees to a residential home, or row home, flat, town home, whatever you want to call it, patio home.
The tap fee itself,
The tap fees.
The tap fees
Typically,
and
no,
the
that's
infrastructure that is built to the home.
no, typically that is not subject to TIF reimbursement.
How about
Okay.
commercial?
Typically
Taps.
not subject to TIF reimbursement. Again, this may be set up differently here, but it's typically not subject to reimbursement.
Wait, 100% commercial is not TIFable?
Typically,
The
no.
tap,
For the tap fees.
the sewer and water drains
It's
are,
not eligible.
Not eligible.
Not considered.
Cannot be used for TIF.
typically
Okay,
is not.
I'm just saying typically these are items that you can separate, you can set these up different ways. Typically, that's considered a private improvement
To a home.
or a commercial resident, a commercial business, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Anything from the meter.
Yep, because that's all usually privately owned.
So you build the street, that's a public entity, right? Because it's
Public
being,
Improvement,
Public
yeah.
improvement.
it's a public improvement if it's being turned over to the town, right? If it was being turned over to the Metro District, it would not be, correct?
That's public as well.
It's public,
That's public
it's
as well?
just.
But there
that would
are
be
private
paid through the
streets that wouldn't
districts.
be.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
If it's a private street, that's different, but if it's a public street that will be open to the public, even if the district maintains it, it would still be eligible for TIF as, in
Okay.
most cases.
thank you for that. So when you build the road and you extend, say, the sewer, water, storm drainage, to the commercial or retail or the home, that portion is not.
The meter is the cutoff.
So the things underneath the road typically would be reimbursable
So from the road to where? I mean, where?
meter.
to the meter.
To the meter is not or is?
Is public, from the road.
Is public. Okay.
Towards the building, when you hit the meter.
Okay.
Meter to the road is public, meter to the house or the business is not public. Again, this is typical.
And then, so the system development fees, new user, no matter if it's just a single-family home down here or wherever, is going to pay a system development fee. That's the price set for it. Those fees are used to pay for infrastructure that's already been built to serve that property. So the plants, the utilities in the road, and the water acquisition rights that we had to go out and buy years ago. That's typically, and any future capital improvements we have to do to the plants or whatever. That's what the system development fee is used for.
Coming off that, though, that makes them revenue, not cost. Those SDFs are revenue to pay for the costs of putting in the public
Metro
infrastructure.
Right.
And that's what I didn't understand about that proposed document, is it appeared to cost out those SDFs and apply them to the public infrastructure cost, and I did not understand that at all. So, to me, we have an accounting issue in that document. Cost is the pipe that
Right.
carries the water or the
Those
sewage,
are separate, yep.
and the tap fee, the SDFs, are the revenue that come in to basically per unit
That's already been built.
usage
Right.
of that. So I look forward to that being explained September 16th, because there seems to be a disconnect to me on that.
You mean, it seems like there's an overlap in...
Well, it seems to me to be wrong, if I can just say what I think. One's revenue and one's expense, and they're both being expensed on that sheet. in my interpretation, but it may be my interpretation. So I just need proper explanation, maybe.
And can I just say the revenue is the tap fee, right? And the expense is the SDF. I'm saying the opposite?
They're one and the same. The
Tap and SDF
Okay.
are the same.
Yeah, the SDF is what we
We charge. We charge.
We charge the new
Typically,
user.
there's a tap fee.
Yeah.
We don't charge a tap fee, we charge an SDF.
So for example, like on a single-family home, a tap fee is like $50. It's just for the actual.
And the
meter
SDF, and the SDF.
Cents of the cost of the
So
house.
I'm allowed, it's about $28,000 that individual homeowner pays to the town to be able to utilize the sewage and water and storm drainage, which is the cost we expended.
But the point you're making, you made the other night, is that is built into the cost of the house that the seller,
Pays the builder. And
the
it should-
buyer pays the builder. who then-
To me, it's not, it's inappropriate on a lot of levels. To make it tippable means it's reimbursed over 25 years as a portion of the property tax component. My fear is this double billing in that the builder will also bill it upon close, and in fact, the homeowner or aggregate of all homeowners of that property will end up paying it twice.
Yeah.
So just have questions of that nature.
This will be part of our discussion tomorrow with them, so.
So to me, the high, one of the high-priced potential costs is parking garages. And what I think it's very confusing here is the mixed use or the shared parking, and how is that going to be handled between private
Well,
parking and...
yeah, I understand that. We have a cost per space estimate, and the garage will be a certain dollar amount divided by a number of spaces, which will give us the cost per space. If it's a mixed-use project and there's residential in there, a number of spaces are going to have to be reserved to serve that residential product, and those costs will not be eligible for the TIF conversion. So we'll have to go through that.
Yeah.
With each FDP that comes forward, if it has a parking garage in there, we'll have to identify the number of spaces to serve the residential and then deduct that cost.
And I've been through this with parking structures, with mixed-use developments, and it actually comes down to the number of spaces that are reserved for residential. And the bond attorneys do this because they have to.
This could get very nasty if somebody takes a space.
Yeah, regardless of what the TIF is, they can't issue bonds for anything that, they can't issue tax-exempt bonds. So they have to determine it first, even before we get to the TIF issue. They need to make sure it's bond eligible. So I've been through this before. We actually have to go down to the number of, this business gets this many spaces, and this business gets this many spaces, and what happens at 5 o'clock? Does it revert to a residential space? Because at 5 o'clock, this business is a bank and it's closing. I mean, it gets to that level of detail.
I think it would have to.
And what happens to the resident when he's sick that day and he
That's what I'm
has...
saying, it gets to that level.
He's
of
got to
detail.
pay.
Yeah.
Well, and this is, if I can put into context, the boring you to death with the parking calculation during the town center discussion, because to the extent that those numbers, for example, they said outright, no implication there at all, 40% of the properties in town center are going to be one-bedroom, and those one-bedroom properties each would have a parking space requirement of, I thought it was 1.05, if I'm pulling that out off the top, and that's where the quibble was. It's not going to be 40% one-bedroom in all probability. It's going to be closer to two-bedroom average or two-and-a-half-bedroom average, plus, even in a one-bedroom, I would contend that it should be parked at least 1.5 cars per household, which says as many have one car as have two cars. And so that was the reason that became very important, because if you read the minutes tonight, it's amazing what those minutes capture that goes by you when you're sitting up here. As Randy himself said, is any residential spot is not tippable.
Exactly.
Right? It isn't tippable. So to the extent that a residential customer has to standardly use street parking because that dwelling does not have adequate private parking, we get into a little bit of a problem here. And I could go into a lot of nuances that came to mind. So look forward to more thorough discussion of that.
Great. So, anything else?
One more question. So on the flex spaces, how does, I mean, that would work the same way whether it was 100% commercial or 100% residential?
Exactly.
So from the street to the meter, it's still tiffable, but from the meter to the business or the residential or the whatever, it's not tiffable.
Again, this is typically, they made the argument to us. There's
said
been an
typical.
argument made that some of that, in certain circumstances, that could constitute a public improvement. So,
Because of in what way? Explain that.
I don't think we're gonna get there, so I think it's gonna be fine, because we're going back and forth between lawyers about it, so what I'm saying is I don't think you need to worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't think you really need to worry about it.
I think the arguments that they're making is that the revenues paying for public improvements that have been made to serve not only their project, but projects in the entire town. You know, the water, wastewater treatment plant, construction and improvements, the water rights.
Oh, the off-site.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So that a system development fee is not a typical TAP fee, and therefore, because it's a system development fee, it's being used to pay for capacity in the plan, and therefore it may be, but again, I don't want you to worry about things that we don't need to.
But in any event, it's revenue. It's not cost, so.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
The issue
Yeah.
is what it's being used for.
What's a public improvement?
In your example there where you said they, who is they?
They're the developer's attorneys.
Okay.
Things that
We're
are
going around and around about this.
some things that are outside what we, just typical infrastructure that we did pay for through a different amount over in the marketplace, which I could see that potentially might apply in the town center, would be architectural enhancements above what we think the base would be. So that, because if it faces a public space, that's potentially a public improvement.
Yeah.
And we had, I forget how much we had, but we had a certain amount for art as well.
Right.
Right. Well, Deborah's comment on flex, and it's, I know it's Lisa's concern as well, is I think that poses a real, we're not wizards here, and we know that at least 25% will be commercial. So when we get these numbers, as I said during the parking discussions, there needs to be best case, worst case numbers presented to us. For example, if all of our flex space becomes commercial, that poses one, I can apply parking costs to those commercial spaces that are tiffable.
Right.
But if that 75% all becomes residential, then I don't.
Exactly.
So I look forward to seeing a table with those different scenarios in there, 25% is, of course, commercial, so that's the minimum commercial we're going to have, but we could have 75% residential in those flex spaces, or we could have any variation, and I'd like to see it at least chunked in 25% chunks to allow us to see how it does vary. If it doesn't vary a lot to the whole mix of parking, then we can drop it out as inconsequential, but if it makes a material difference.
Be a good discussion.
Yeah, and you're ready to hit
I'm
that?
ready.
Yeah.
I
You want to
am.
get the heck out. Okay, I'll make this quick, but we still have not received a itemization of what this project is going to be in its entirety on the TIF.
What do you mean?
Well, we were going to have an itemized list
Of
of,
I sent that to you prior to the August 19th meeting.
That's that.
But we do have that?
That's the one
Okay.
we use with the 6 boxes.
That was one that was revised, correct? Okay.
Based on
Okay.
staff assessment.
Okay, staffs, all right. That not the one I just, okay, I'm with you.
No, yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's coming back around, too. I'm sure we'll see
It
it
is
again.
coming back around, right?
Anything else from the town manager? You done?
No.
Reports? Attorney?
Yeah, thanks.
Clerk? Seeing none, anything else from the board?
Why you look at me?
I'm just checking, I don't want, anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you.